We have an unusual setup today. We have a twofer. We have two speakers and a moderator, and so we are so lucky. We have Jacob Silverman, who is a senior talent acquisition consultant at Specialist Staffing. He's going to be talking about resume review program, and we have Amanda Cruz. I think lots of you know her already. She is a Salesforce technical recruiter, and she'll be talking about blazing a new trail with Salesforce. Let me give you a real quick summary of their backgrounds. Jacob is a New York, New Jersey native who loves sports and played baseball, soccer, tennis, and varsity bowling growing up. He graduated from the University of Arizona, Eller College of Management with a business management degree, and after college, he moved back to NYC as the third hire of a tech startup called Atlas Scientific that built technology for environmental monitoring with a focus on fish farming, fish tanks, aquaponics, hydroponics, etc. While at Atlas Scientific, he was a jack of all trades, from managing the business ops to finance and accounting to sales. After 6 years in the tech startup space, he moved into the recruitment industry, and in June of 2019, he took a job in Austin at Specialist Staffing / Computer Futures with the internal recruitment team. He now works on building out a dynamic and engaging sales team. All about sales. Amanda is an active member in the Salesforce community. Salesforce is a customer relationship management software and service that includes a complementary suite of enterprise applications focused on customer service, marketing automation, analytics, and application development. She has seen firsthand how diving into the Salesforce ecosystem has created new opportunities for those looking for a change. Amanda began her journey into Salesforce as a self-employed Salesforce administrator and then joined the Cisco team as a live support representative before becoming a community coordinator. During this time, Amanda got more involved in the Salesforce community by getting involved with Salesforce Saturday, Marivis, I hope, and Pep Up Tech. In March of 2019, she joined the Computer Futures team as a Salesforce recruitment consultant. She had witnessed firsthand how the Salesforce ecosystem can change lives and build a community. So if you have any questions that you have, put them in the chat box. I think some of you submitted questions ahead of time. I know that Shannon was soliciting those, and Elizabeth is in charge of moderating this talk. She will be funneling your questions to our two experts, and we cannot wait to get started. So Elizabeth, tell them, since I don't have a bio on you, will you please introduce yourself and explain what your background is?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm Elizabeth Lamb. I'm the partnerships manager for Breaking the Glass. Breaking the Glass is the Women's Career Development and D&I initiative sponsored and founded by Computer Futures. What started as a grassroots organization in Austin is now a national program where we partner with organizations like Dell, Visa, Walmart, Intel, Women in Cable Tech. And what we do with these partnerships is we go in and we create collaborative programs based on their own development goals. And then we go in and we find the speakers and really create a great program with them. So it's been an amazing journey going through this. Shannon and I got connected throughout the Austin community, and I'm so excited that she invited us to come in, and I'm so excited to introduce you to my very close colleagues, Jacob and Amanda. Jacob's going to give us some amazing insight about the resume review program that he kicked off at the beginning of the pandemic, and Amanda's going to share some amazing personal insight stories about how the Salesforce ecosystem can create great change, and it's an amazing career pivot. So I'll go ahead and pass the metaphorical mic over to Jacob.
Cool. Thank you so much for the intro. I think I might be most proud of my my little bowling career there for a few years. Can answer questions about that later. So just kind of want to get into it, give you guys a background on the resume review program. Quick few top tips for myself, but then really want to spend most of the time trying to answer your questions the best that I can on resumes. So I guess in COVID about 6 months ago, we were kind of in a standstill and didn't really know what was happening. And for somebody like myself who does internal hiring, I was kind of in a bit of a standstill, building like a metaphoric pipeline for the future of the what if, and had a lot of time. And so I was just like, how can I give back? And obviously I couldn't volunteer in person. And so I just made a post on LinkedIn. I try to do weekly posts and make content with our team internally, but I just decided to make a post about offering free resume help for anybody in need, anybody who wanted to get prepared for the what if and what could happen. And honestly, wasn't expecting what happened afterwards. I think I had over 18,000 views, something like 300 likes, and I ended up helping like 50 individuals with their resumes over a few-week period. And so after that happened, I had a couple of colleagues, Danny Cohen, VP of Computer Futures, also made a post continuing on my success as well as some of my colleagues internally. And then next thing you know, I'm working with the International Corporate Social Responsibility team on how to roll this out as an initiative for all of Specialist Staffing Group across basically the world. I think right now we're in Amsterdam, but primarily in the United States right now. And so out of almost 400 employees in the US, we had 70 people volunteer internally. And we've helped over 120 people so far and want to definitely keep on continuing to build on that success. So that's a little bit about the program so far. And I think just to kind of keep it brief and again, spend most of the time trying to help everybody with questions, just some of my, I guess, top quick fixes that I've learned over the last couple of years. So first thing is formatting. I know it seems super simple, but you'd be very surprised. You want to make sure that your margins are all the same. So really what I like to do is make the margins as wide as possible. Try to keep things concise. If you have a couple of year career, try to get it to one page, but otherwise, if you widen the margins and you have more of an extensive career, like 2 or 3 pages max is what I like to see. Besides for that, so your titles can be a different font, but generally, the job or the company you work for, the job title and the dates, I like to see that all be the same font, as well as the content and bullet points beneath that should all be the same font for every single experience that you have there. And, they all can be the same font. You can keep them different. Like, I don't mind seeing like a title, size 14, Calibria or Times New Roman, and then the actual content 12, but just make sure that it's the same throughout the resume. I think it just helps look professional and makes the resume look nice and clean. The second thing that I would recommend is grammar, and it's sometimes something that's like pretty overlooked. And what I mean by that is just in general, like anything that's a past job should be in past tense, and a current job should be in present tense. Anything that you're doing now is present tense. Anything that you've done is past. And so that's something super simple that you can go through and just make sure that aligns across your experiences. Another thing I like to see, and this can be generally, this could be for a lot of different jobs, but any metrics, any numbers, anything that you can show that you can get really granular around your experience, I like to see at the top of your bullet points. So for example, for me, it might be like generated, over 35 hires across 4 brands and, 3,000 employees in under 2 years. Something like that just kind of shows the scope of the work that I'm doing. But I like to see the top bullet points with numbers. Numbers, honestly, for me, call my attention. The next thing that I was going to say is, you don't want too many summary paragraphs, and it's all right to tailor one at the top to what job you're looking at or what your interests are. But, under each experience, you don't want to have, for example, like senior talent acquisition consultant, then I have a summary paragraph of what I've done and then 7 bullet points below. Because for me, paragraphs and stuff, like I'm looking at the quickest, easier way, because I'm reviewing a lot of resumes, of how to get the information quickly. And so it's all right to have a little bit of a summary, but again, you don't want it to be like all paragraphs throughout, because for me, that looks like something, honestly, that I'm not going to spend time reading. And so that's why I say like numbers, because I'll see percentages, numbers, and I'm like, boom, boom. Okay, that's measurable success. this person knows exactly what they've done. And that grabs my attention. So those are generally my quick points. And again, I wanted to kind of get through that quickly to open up to questions. I know that there were some questions coming up. Elizabeth, I don't know if you want to read the questions or if I should just be looking in the chat, but I can open this up now to the rest of the time being for questions.
Yeah, I got you. So we do have a question from David. Jacob, what's your advice for including accomplishments/successes on a resume for a creative position? Metrics are not always directly assignable to specific contributions from creative teams, creative direction, art direction, graphic design, etc. So qualifying is a challenge.
Sure. I love an accomplishments slide, especially at the top, because again, for somebody like me, it makes it super easy to read. And so if you have big clients you've worked on, any awards you've won, how big were the teams that you were managing projects for? That's all really exciting stuff that I think that you can showcase pretty easily at the top of your resume. And also in a cover letter as well. Whenever I'm introducing candidates, I tell them to give me their Wikipedia sales summary or kind of their last ditch chance to sell themselves. What separates you from another candidate coming in? And so that can be in a cover letter, or that could be at the top of your resume, whatever you're most comfortable with. Because at the end of the day, your resume is your product and you have to be comfortable with what you're presenting.
Fantastic. Okay, we have another question from Ed. How many skills are too many on a resume, and how to classify them to make it easier to read?
That's a really good question. Honestly, if you're structuring your points on your resume enough, I think those skill sets come out. For example, there's a lot of redundancies these days, generally the Microsoft Office suite. I'm pretty sure most people know how to, use a Word document or general Excel, unless you've passed, high level Excel program, Excel programs or additional, qualifications, classifications, stuff like that. You can put that there. But I would say, use your bullet points to demonstrate most of your skills. I don't typically look at the skills, but again, certifications, accomplishments, that's stuff that you can really demonstrate that. But again, I at the bottom of it, I would just say keep it to 2 lines maximum, and that could just be Adobe, comma, Java, comma, whatever is relative to your career.
Great, fantastic. Next question is from Robert. What if all bullets are accomplishments with metrics?
That's awesome then. I would try to think of what are the biggest selling metrics first. And so have the biggest numbers or your most proud accomplishments around those metrics at the top of your resume. But if it's all metrics, that's awesome. It's honestly, that's interesting to think about though, because I think also that, too many numbers might make it hard for somebody to read, the same way that it's too many summary things. So it's you want to draw attention to the ones that you're most proud of, that you think sell yourself the most. So if it's all metrics based, that's fantastic. But again, I believe somebody else asked, you can have an accomplishments section as well to highlight your biggest metrics or number related accomplishments.
Fantastic. And then next question from Kathy. How should someone explain gaps?
That's a really good question. And that's something that I had to do on my resume because I had kind of interesting reasons for leaving the startup that I was at for almost 6 years. And so generally what I can recommend is next to the job title or the company, you can put in parentheses company downsized or COVID related layoffs, traveled for a year, in parentheses next to something. But that's definitely a really good way. And that's a really good point. Thank you for raising that question, of addressing a question that is going to be answered in an interview. If you can address those things up front and prevent it from becoming an issue, I think you're already ahead of the game and addressing those issues. So definitely include those with the job title or with the company at the top of the experiences.
That's really great. I haven't heard that one before. That's really cool. And then next one, another one from Kathy, is how far back chronologically should someone go?
So that's a really good question. And generally, I think it's like the 10-year rule of thumb. And so, from my perspective, if you have 20 years of experience, that's fantastic. And you can kind of talk to your expertise then. But if you have 20 years and let's say 8 jobs, somebody who's reviewing your resume may look initially and be like, wow, this person's had 8 jobs. Okay. Like that. And my brain would be like, that's a little bit jumpy. And so you might want to limit it to, your most recent 10 years, honestly. And then if you want to, have accomplishments or additional experiences, you could have like one line item at the bottom for additional experiences with like a date range, just to talk about that. But yeah, I would try to limit it to 10 years if you have more than 10 years of experience.
Great. Well, yeah, we still have a few more minutes for Jacob's session. So any other questions that come through would be great. But Jacob, do you have any success stories from the resume review program that you'd like to share? Anyone who came back to you and said like, hey, after speaking with the team.
Yeah. So a couple. So initially for myself, and it's funny because I think when you're doing something, like you don't realize how valuable that advice can be from your career. Like once you become like an expert or a subject matter expert. And so I actually had somebody who was a VP of an HR department who was laid off due to COVID asking me for an interview advice and like how to best prepare for an interview she was going through. And then she messaged me afterwards that, she felt so much more prepared and that she was going on to the next round. And so that was really exciting. I know internally we are getting a lot of follow-ups and we're asking people for success stories. Not really anything huge to report back on at this point, just because it's so new. But also, in addition to resume questions, I'm happy to spend the rest of my time answering any interview questions or prep questions that people may have.
Great. We had another question come through, again from Ed. What happens if I have done many consultancy projects in the past? How can I add them to my resume without seeming jumpy? I mean, this is great because Computer Futures does a lot of contract work. I know you're.
Yeah, no, and that's a really good question. And honestly, when it comes to more technical resumes, again, like there's so many different ways you can do your resumes. And my view is just based on advice, and you have to kind of be most comfortable. But what you can do is, you could have like a job title, for example, consultant, and then have a date range, and then have the different projects beneath that. Instead of having everything as like a Dell, AMD, SolarWorks, blah, blah, like you can have those, but make the main title consultant work or something like that. And then highlight the experiences below instead of making each thing a broken out, different paragraph experience line item.
Got it. So yeah, talk more about the project itself as opposed to the company. That's really great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. And then if someone's relevant experience is from a long time ago and they're resurrecting a previous career and then their recent experience is unrelated, how should they show that?
That's a really good question. I think in that case, you definitely would want to have a summary of like maybe, or a cover letter of why you're getting back into that career, why you're excited, why you want a career. Because typically, I'll give you recruitment, for example. If you go from recruitment to marketing and then you decide you want to get back into recruitment, that's a little bit of an interesting jump. And so like one of the first thing managers are going to ask you is like, why do you know you want to be in a recruitment career, and what is most exciting about that? And so just think about a way that you can kind of address the questions up front. Highlighting those experiences, I think, like we are already talked about, accomplishments. If you want to put accomplishments at the top of your resume related to, for example, recruitment, if you're trying to resurrect that career after 5 years versus, your marketing experience, do the best that you can to highlight that information. Granted, timeline wise on your resume, it may fall to the bottom, but that's when I think it's good to use the accomplishments or a summary area to highlight, bring those to the top and kind of put those at the forefront versus whatever your most recent experiences that might not be relevant, excuse me.
Well, yeah, thank you. And then another one from Sherry. How significantly different are the software engineer startup salaries versus medium to large size companies?
Oof, that's a tough question. I can tell you for me, I got some equity in the company and I was basically paying us as much as we possibly could without going under in the beginning. So it was basically just a survival game in startup. I think it all depends on the funding of a company, how well established they are. Sometimes in startups, you may see like what I had was like an equity arrangement versus, to kind of forego a salary initially to save as much capital as possible, because when you're starting a company, cash flow is going to be your biggest problem. Again, I don't really know much more past that. I wouldn't be the expert in that, but I'm sure that there's people within our company who could help better answer that.
Yeah, Sherry, we're happy to get you connected with someone if you're really looking for a role in software engineering. Also, I think with LinkedIn Premium features, they give you salary insights data. So if you have a premium subscription, you might be able to tap into that tool. And then, yeah, another one from Kathy. What about having taken a survival job, totally unrelated to the career and low paying? Should you include it or leave it off?
How long was the survival job?
Kathy, would you like to turn your mic on? And
Well, these days, for example, with COVID,
Mm-hmm.
if people don't have unemployment or whatever, then they're going to lose their home unless they take something. So they do, and this has happened in the 2008 and 9 in that crisis, and in 1987, 88 in that crisis. So people end up taking, they're delivering papers, or they're doing pizza, or they're working. I know somebody who got laid off after an executive position, really, with Facebook. And he got to the point where he was working as a dispatcher for a security company. So, sometimes people just have to take whatever they can get, cobble together something in order to pay their bills and keep their homes.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. And I think, obviously there's a pretty good explanation for that. It's not like unrelated to anything. I just think that COVID or financial problems that the whole entire country and world are going through is a super reasonable and understandable, thing to have on your resume. And so honestly, I would put you could do like miscellaneous jobs and then like COVID related. I think for me, what that demonstrates is resilience. Somebody who, and not to take away, like let's say for example, this lasts a year and somebody didn't do anything for a year, I would be more questioning like what were you doing in that year? And it could be, so much as like, did certifications, and additional work to like get better at your craft. And it could be miscellaneous jobs, but I think you can totally create a section with maybe a little bit of a blurb, like a 2-sentence explanation before you get into the bullet points, about a little bit of background on that situation to address it up front. But again, I think that there's no reason to not put that on your resume. I think it's super important, and I think it just shows again your resilience and like your willingness to do what it takes to survive in the moment. And I, for me at least, like I would value that a lot. I value that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So yeah, we are at pretty much like 25 minutes. For Jacob, I've just sent through his email address and a link to our resume review program. So if you have any extra questions, there's lots of ways to get in touch with us. So I'm going to go ahead and now pass the mic over to Amanda. But yeah, thank you, Jacob, so much. That was so much great information, and I'm going to pass it on to other people as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Jacob. Good morning, everyone. I hope you are all wide awake and ready to pivot into the weekend. First off, I just wanted to thank you all for joining us today. We are all here for the same reason, and that is, how do we take our past experience and find a way to transition into something new that aligns with what we're looking to gain? So, as mentioned earlier, my background is doing a little bit of Salesforce admin work before I came onto the telepresence team at Cisco Systems. And then I transitioned as a community coordinator with Scott Felter Homes, and then found myself as a Salesforce technical recruiter with Computer Features. Now I know what you're thinking, how completely different each path is. But through each experience, one thing has remained the same, and that is that each role, as different as they may be, I was always able to take a skill that I learned with me previously and apply it to the next job. And I know that you've heard me mention Salesforce twice, which brings me to why I am here today with you all this afternoon. So for anyone who doesn't know, Salesforce is the #1 CRM, customer success, and it helps businesses, small to enterprise level companies, track customer activity, market to customers, and many other services. But more importantly, within the Salesforce ecosystem, it is filled with professionals from all different backgrounds. I've met women who 4 years ago were so shy to even come to meetups. You fast forward 4 years later now, I've seen them go from the shy individuals in the room avoiding eye contact that would lead to conversation, and now there are our women in tech leaders who now stand up and they speak and they lead a packed room with full confidence. I've even met veterans in the ecosystem, and there's one particular who got out of the military, and he had such a hard time finding a job that he had to give plasma to have money in his pocket. And now he's found himself in the Miravis Foundation that supports our veterans, which I am representing today, and their spouses. And not to mention, he was the keynote speaker last year at Dreamforce. So you see, there's something here for everyone. But in order to have you have an even better understanding of just exactly what this path can do for you in your journey, I want to share a story of why I came to love the ecosystem so much. So if you can give me just one moment to pull up the video, I'll show you exactly why.
Kid, I loved school. School was my safe place. I was a straight A student, National Honor Society. But I was dealt a hand that wasn't traditional, and that kind of turned my life upside down. So I did not get to go to college. After high school, my first job was working in the cotton fields with my grandfather. Seeing that was his only way to take care of his family, I felt a responsibility to do better. My husband got a job at Dell. He's like, just go interview. And I was like, I don't know computers. I don't have that experience. Somehow I got the job, had great managers. I learned so much there. Once I got into the Salesforce platform, it changed everything. I've had so many people help me along the way. My manager at the time, he really believed in me. He's like, yeah, I was looking for someone to own the Salesforce instance, and I found you. He really gave me the confidence to fly. I'm starting out in the cotton fields of West Texas. Now I'm working as a director of technology on the Salesforce platform. That's the direct result of others helping me. So if I can do that for somebody else, I'm going to help them.
Stephanie is the heart and soul of the Austin community.
I started Salesforce Saturday to help others be successful.
A trailblazer to me is someone who leads the way for the next generation. It's a whole new world. It's evolving and growing. People think they can't keep up with technology, but they can't. We show them how to start using Trailhead, and they're off to the races.
We are encouraging each other, motivating each other, building each other up to be stronger through knowledge.
It's a story of support. It's a story of mentoring. A bunch of great, sweet friends.
There's just they give me this power, like, oh, you can do it too. I was like, this is it. I can do it. When you find something you really love, the first instinct is to share it. Now, this is all happening on different sides of the world. everybody can come together, learn new skills, earn badges, and connect with the community. You really can change the world one person at a time. You helped out one person and they help somebody else. It does keep going on and on. And for me, that's been the most satisfying thing.
As I was saying, that video always gets to me a little bit because there are so many familiar faces that I have grown to know and love in this ecosystem, in this community. So now that you know a little bit about the community and I've seen a success story, I can also let you in on a little secret. That woman is my mom, and I've had a front row seat to that journey you just watched. She's now helped pave a path for myself and even my son. And this community around me, who I consider not only a group of professionals, but family, stems from her stepping out of her comfort zone and blazing a trail. So again, you see there's something here for everyone, no matter where you are in your career path. It's an inclusive environment for everyone who are people just like you. Now, I don't know where we are on time right now. We may be open to Q&A, or you can always reach out to me through LinkedIn. Elizabeth, how are we on time?
Yeah, we still about like 15 minutes, but we know that you're involved with multiple organizations, Salesforce Saturday, Pep Up Tech, Marivis. Do you want to maybe share a story of success from each of those orgs?
Yeah, I can share one with a few. So as I had mentioned earlier, the veteran who had to donate blood in order to have just money in his pocket, he is part of our Marivis Foundation, who, again, I am representing today, who they do support our veterans and their spouses. And so each organization within Salesforce that is a nonprofit gives our veterans and their spouses the tools. Again, that was through Marivis. We have Pep Up Tech, who serves our underserved community, people who honestly are in a space where they never even dreamt possible simply because of their background and where they come from. We also provide them the tools in order to help them get certified and help them find jobs as well. Salesforce Saturday, again, that comes from something that my mother had founded 5 years ago here in Austin. And that is really just for everyone to come together every Saturday in your local coffee shop or wherever it may be, depending on where you are. And you come together, you have admins, developers, architects, anyone can join, or even if you're just starting and you don't know where to turn to, that is a wonderful place to start to find people whose, I guess, experiences and where they are headed that aligns with yours. And you're able to lean on each other there and study for your certifications.
Great, thank you. Do you have a little bit insights about earning badges and trailheads and how kind of people can get started in a very accessible way?
It is all online. That is what's so wonderful about Salesforce, is that it provides you the tools, hands-on experience through Trailhead. I would highly recommend doing Trailhead first before diving into anything deeper in your certification. Now, I also have worked with Computer Futures, and so as a Salesforce technical recruiter, I will say that certifications are major. I would highly recommend that you study, get on Trailhead, just put yourself in the environment with to lean on others and pick their brains, and basically go get certified. So that is all provided to you on Trailhead, and it's a way for you to get to the next level and get yourself certified. And there are different certifications that you can explore. But yes, that is what I would recommend as far as trailheads and badges go. It's a really good way to get started. And the wonderful thing about this is that it is free.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know a lot of times people looking to receive more training, there always is a cost associated with it. So the fact that like you can start beginning your training for free is amazing. Yeah, everyone, again, while Amanda and I are going back and forth. If you have any questions that you want to chat in, or just open up your mic and let us know. I know that, to me, I'd heard about Salesforce before, but before joining the team at Breaking the Glass and learning more about their communities, it was something that I knew it was big. I just didn't realize like how big and how impactful. So it's definitely something where we do have someone who really knows a lot of the ins and outs of this community on this call. So definitely ask those questions. Yeah, Amanda, is there anything coming up right now, how people can get involved? Are y'all doing meetups virtually?
Virtually, yes, absolutely. That has not stopped. So it is virtual now. And even if I'm not sure where everyone is joining in from, I would be more than happy if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. I know a lot of the leaders in the different areas throughout the US. And so even if I don't know, I can always find out who to point you in the right direction to meet up with and join those virtual meetups.
Fantastic. That's great. So Kathy just asked a question. What software is the major competitor of Salesforce?
The major competitor. Oh, I would feel, I'm not sure who that would be. I would think maybe Oracle?
Oracle maybe? Okay.
Or Microsoft Dynamics.
Got it. Okay. So have you seen any people position from being developers in those spaces into Salesforce?
Absolutely. Yes. Even through my job as a technical recruiter, that is developers. I spoke with them all day, architects, people who have Java backgrounds, .NET. And I always ask them on the telephone call, what has brought you to the Salesforce ecosystem? And most of the time they have started maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and they've just said that they've heard how popular Salesforce has become, and they pretty much want to have a piece of the pie, and I don't blame them. So people from different backgrounds in development and even sales have been able to transition quite smoothly into this space. Again, it is free, and so that is a nice perk to coming into this community and the ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah, so you said like people from a background of sales have transitioned. So you've definitely like not only seen people learn different development languages, you've seen non-technical people, start adapting these skills.
Right, and you don't even have to code, honestly. It is a nice perk, but that's what's wonderful about being in the Salesforce ecosystem is that you don't have to code.
Fantastic. We got a question from Shannon, and she said, how does having the Salesforce certification help my career? I guess it's like, you can have skills, but like how does the certification help you stand out?
The certification will help you stand out because it shows hiring managers that you are continuing your education and you're continuing to learn, because to be very honest, well, any technology that we are in, it's constantly evolving. And so that is what Salesforce is doing right now. So to become certified, people want to at least see that you at least have a starting point at that. Now, we are in different times to where maybe, I don't know, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, if you had joined Salesforce or even knew how to spell Salesforce at that time, you got the job. But it is very popular now. It is very, I guess, like I had mentioned before, #1 CRM. So these hiring managers, they really want to see that you were able to go in, take the test. Now, I will be very honest. Sometimes maybe it takes taking it a second time, but that is why we have the community to lean on each other and to go to Salesforce Saturday to study alongside each other. But the certifications, it will help because it is something that is almost required, I feel, from hiring managers at this point.
Mm-hmm. Great. And yeah, I also have heard that, once you have these certifications, your skills are in really high demand, right? It's Salesforce is being adopted by everyone.
Absolutely. Yep. There's many different clients that we work with. As I mentioned before, small businesses to enterprise level companies, you name it.
Great. So Kathy has another question. How many different certifications or modules are there, or models?
There are quite a few. I would definitely feel more comfortable getting in touch with, I'm sorry, you said Kathy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I will be more than happy to get in touch with Kathy and just kind of go through. Again, it is going to go back to what it is that you're looking for, whether that's development, or architect, or business analyst. But I believe there are at least 21 certifications.
Wow, that's a lot. Do you know anyone who's done every certification?
Yes. And I can also get you in touch with them too as well if you'd like.
Perfect. And yeah, so Sherry asked, like, how much does the certification cost? I know that there's a lot of free things, but do costs end up showing up anywhere in the process?
Yes, I believe it is a little higher, obviously, from it being free, but I can double check that for you if that's okay. I want to make sure that I'm not giving you the wrong information.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and everyone, I've just put in Amanda's email, so you can reach her at followamanda@yahoo.com. Yeah, Stephen pretty much asked is there a cost associated with obtaining the certifications? We pretty much just touched on that.
I would say about 200 basic, but again, I want to make sure that I'm not putting the wrong amount out there for everyone, but basic about $200.
Great. And then another one, if someone is looking for a job in logistics or operations, are there separate training models for them?
No, I'm not positive, but if you can send me an email and I can double check that for you. You can find somebody who might know an exact answer.
Great. Yeah, and so this software is being adopted by multiple industries. It's not just people in the tech space. You know, Kathy just mentioned logistics. You can imagine that it's something that maybe even within the medical, like hospitals are probably using this as well. Great. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions that we can answer about Salesforce, or we're happy to like open it back over to resumes and interviews as well, or interviewing for Salesforce positions?
I got a quick question.
Sure.
I've looked into Salesforce and was of course very impressed by the Trailblazer program, and it's, if you want to have fun, go contrast that by what it takes to get Cisco certified or Micro certified or Oracle certified. It's very expensive. But I've also been looking at Servicenow, and I don't know if you're familiar with that. I have a friend that's working with Servicenow, and they have a very similar program of self-learning. And if you're familiar with it, I'm just wondering if you could contrast what would be the pluses of Salesforce versus Servicenow.
I'm sorry, no, I am not sure. That's another that I will have to double check into for you, but no, I am not aware.
Yeah, it's not a CRM as such. It's more geared towards IT organizations, but I love that they follow in the pattern of Salesforce, that they have a lot of free certifications, badges, and that kind of thing. And I was about to complete my first badge on that, and I started down the Trailblazer trail as well, but I don't know that I can do both of them at the same time.
Right, and that might just be something to just kind of weigh out and understand the difference and what might lead you down a path to more success, and what honestly aligns with you and what it is that you're looking for. So if you'd like to connect after, I'd be more than happy to see how I can help you to understand maybe which path might be a better one for you.
Yeah, I'll reach out to you on LinkedIn and we can get together.
Perfect. That sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
I actually have a question for Jacob. Jacob, you were talking to us about what you're seeing visually as a recruiter for a resume, but we got to get past those bots first. So the format that you were sharing with us, would that get us back past those applicant tracking systems?
That's a really good question because I don't really use the bots. I post jobs on LinkedIn, and I usually go. I'm more like headhunting, so seeking out people. And so I think that these same tips can be used to clean up your LinkedIn as well. Go back only 10 years. Like I said, you can put certifications, accomplishments on your LinkedIn, but try to keep it clean. Even going as far as like seeking out colleagues and stuff for recommendations, or endorse somebody for certain skills, and they'll reciprocate it as well. Like anything to really beef up your presence. For example, like myself, over the last year, I've grown my network by 3,000 people. I've gotten internal referrals on my network, and I've endorsed people as well. And it's just kind of, letting people know that you appreciate the work they've done for you, and they'll typically reciprocate it. But just being active, trying to think a little bit, I guess 2 or 3 dimensional, not just like this is my, picture. These are my experiences. Like, how can you make yourself, I guess, more visible, would say, but I don't really know too much about the bots, honestly.
So since you are talking about LinkedIn, we've been recommending people put in, open to remote work. Is that something that catches your attention as well? I mean, considering we're right now in the midst of COVID.
So that's not something that catches my eyes. If you're open to work, but open to new opportunities, that's something that I'll typically look at when I'm filtering out people before looking at people who are not open to new opportunities. So open to new opportunities, making sure that you have keywords that you might want, like when people are searching. So for example, anything that's on your LinkedIn is something that I can search when using LinkedIn Recruiter. So when I'm using keywords, for example, I'm doing recruiter or technical recruiter or account executive or business development. So wherever you have that in your profile, it'll typically pull that up. I don't know if that's helpful.
Oh, that's very helpful. So, because I mean, sometimes people will get a little bit creative, like I called her Salesforce Diva. That's not exactly a title that that people would be searching, but maybe the Salesforce part would come up if somebody actually put themselves. Basically, don't do really, really creative titles. Do things that recruiters would search for.
Sure, absolutely, and it depends how people are searching on it. On LinkedIn Recruiter generally, but that might be a good section to do like a career summary. And include what you're looking for, because keywords in that will also pop up. So if you're looking for a marketing job, I would focus a lot of your summary around marketing. That actually kind of goes back to the last question. If you're trying to pivot, let's say, you did recruitment 10 years ago, you did marketing for 5 years, you want to get back into recruitment. Put in your summary everything about recruitment, because the more keywords you have, the more that'll pull up in a search for people when they're looking. Also, another really good thing to do is join as many job groups and as groups online. Don't be afraid to share your story and be real. I think that's like one thing, like why I had so much success is because no one told me to do this. No one was like, you'll get more money, like we'll promote you if you get more, LinkedIn credit. I just honestly, it was genuine and it was real. And like, that's the type of content that really goes to the next level. And so I don't think that there's any shame or, lack of pride involved in sharing like some of the hardships or talking about your story, especially during COVID, because more people than you realize can relate. And so, again, there's absolutely no shame in going through hardships due to COVID right now. A lot of the world is, and people are excited to like take that relief. No other people are going through it also. And you'll be surprised at how many business owners, how many people want to try to help right now.
I have a question as well. I've been told that recruiters have a default filter on LinkedIn that says they want to look for people who have 1 to 5 years experience in their current job, or they've been at their current job for 1 to 5 years. And we've always told people that if they're unemployed, that they need to create a current job, and that current job can be project manager at open to new opportunities, or project manager at utilizing gap principles in order to do financial records or something like that, so that they show that they have a current job. And but if the default on LinkedIn is that they have been in that current job for 1 to 5 years, will that exclude them? Are you somebody that uses that default, or do you not look at that?
Good question. And I'll try to, I guess, point me back on track if I get off track here. But generally, that's an extra thing that you can filter out in LinkedIn Recruiter. It's not a default or anything that people use typically. So, for example, myself right now, due to COVID, we're not just adding headcount just to add headcount. It's very much strategic for people that we can support, with remote training and development, as well as people who can kind of come in and hit the ground running right now. And so I may filter that now just because I'm looking for people who have recruitment experience right now that can kind of come in and hit the ground running. But that's not an overall thing. What I would say, and you can put it in your summary, what's happening. But generally, I mean, if you're worried about somebody filtering out if you're in a current job or not, just leave it open. Just, if you got laid off recently, just don't put an end date. And don't quote me on that. But no, you can be honest in the summary about that. But if you're worried about being filtered out because maybe you got laid off or you left it, your experience will still come up if you leave that open. And it's not lying if you put that in your summary. If that's something you're really concerned about, but I haven't seen that as a major issue when I'm searching for people.